Now, you also do a non-sector approach, correct?
Correct.
Can you give us a little detail on that?
Sure. Again, the American Disciplined Equity is a sector-neutral oriented product, but we run a number of other products that are not sector-oriented neutral, one being called the Value Momentum Leaders Portfolio, as well as another one called the International Value Momentum Portfolio. Both those portfolios have had excellent returns in the past 1 and 3 year periods. In fact, the firm won an award from a company called Informia called Top Gun, and Top Gun basically is the being one of the top 10 managers in the country over 1 and 3 year periods.
So having said that, give us the picks for the next 1 to 3 years that are coming.
Sure, and again, with the sector-oriented models, really what the difference is I'm really going to try to focus in on the different sectors of the economy that are doing much, much better. So
how do you determine which are those sectors that are doing much better?
Basically, it's all a quantitative factor approach. Basically, it's a lot more actively updated. As an example, the American Disciplined Equity is rebalanced on a quarterly basis. These other two models are rebalanced on a monthly basis. So they're much more sensitive to changes on what's going on currently within the market. The Value Momentum Leaders model currently has a fairly big weighting in materials, energy, and consumer discretionary stocks. So it's not going to really be sector neutral, so to speak, as the S&P 500. Therefore, volatility has been a little bit higher in the portfolio, and you really shouldn't run that portfolio all by itself.
So that's kind of interesting that consumer discretionary would show up, because obviously one of the things that's being talked about is the slowing down of the consumer. But since you're going back over a longer period of time, is that what's causing those stocks to still seem attractive? And you know, a lot of those stocks, example, Macy's has sold off from the high 40s down into the low 20s.
And as an exact opposite to that, Walmart has done exceptionally well, which has been a real dog for a real long time. So it's really very specific on what stocks are the winners or the losers in the consumer discretionary space right now.
So stock picking becomes important.
Exactly. One of the top ranked stocks this past month within the Value Momentum Leaders is a company called Cummins Engine. Cummins Engine, speaking of earnings expectations, they just beat their earnings. They earned 97 cents versus 89 cents in this previous period, but they've got increased demand for their diesel engines, and that stock has been the top ranked stock here over this past 1 month period.
Now, obviously, Cummins is getting a lot of their growth from not only just inside the U.S., but outside the U.S. And when you're looking at your process, do you break out how much of a company's sales or earnings are coming from the U.S. versus international? No,
but a company like Cummins and a lot of the big multinational companies have definitely had the wind in their sails, so to speak, by the weakening dollar. The weakening dollar has made basically our goods here more competitively priced abroad. So that's really helped Cummins Engines and selling their diesel engines not only to U.S. manufacturers of trucks, but also overseas as well.
So let's go back to the oil company they mentioned, because I know people are hanging on, waiting for you to come back to that.
Sure.
Let's discuss that company a little bit.
Sure. Well, they're in the International Value Momentum product, and in the International Value Momentum product, just like the Value Momentum Leaders product, was considered a top gun over the last 1 and 3 year periods by Informa. But there's a number of different stocks within that portfolio that have done very well within the energy sector. One being a company called Sasol out of South Africa. They own coal mines, but they also have a unique technology to be able to convert coal into fuel. So that, as higher oil prices have increased, the demand for their product has increased. So we're very bullish on that stock. Another stock is called Statoil, which is a company based out of Norway. It's the Norwegian state oil company. They have a lot of proven reserves off the north coast of Norway, but they also have joint ventures with companies like Petrobras in South America, where they've benefited from the oil discoveries down there.
And the symbols for those stocks for our viewers are?
SSL for Sasol, and STO for Statoil.
Great. And I also know that you're a fan of some of the material stocks too, correct?
Yes, the material stocks have been doing very well, and a lot of it has been just the demand from a lot of the countries, the BRIC countries, where demand has increased dramatically for all sorts of raw materials. Steel in specific has been doing exceptionally well. The company here in America that actually ranks high within my American Disciplined Equity portfolio, as well as the non-sector oriented models. They are basically a provider of raw steel materials. Another company overseas that's actually a Canadian company called Fording. Fording is basically does metallurgical coal, basically, which goes into building steel as well. So there's been a great demand for all natural material oriented prices, and that unfortunately has led to higher prices, and I think eventually is going to lead to higher inflation across the board.
And you referred earlier to the BRIC countries. For some of our less sophisticated
Sure.
viewers, can you tell them what the BRIC countries
Sure.
are?
BRIC stands for Brazil, Russia, India, and China. They're basically a lot of the emerging market countries that are having exceptionally high growth that's really taking a lot of the demand for basic materials from coal to oil to steel to copper to nickel, basically, and has been driving a lot of the demand and driving higher prices as well.
So you're bringing up the BRICS. I'm going to ask, what's your favorite Chinese company? What's your favorite Brazilian company going?
Sure. Recently, Baidu, which is basically an internet provider over in China, has done exceptionally well. Went through a little period of some volatility, but the last couple of weeks we got back into it again. Has done exceptionally well. Russian companies, we're in Rostel right now. There's been a change in leadership in Russia, so that hopefully will lead to a little bit more reform.
And Rostel is a telecommunications company?
Correct. So with my American Disciplined Equity product and the International Value Momentum product, we have the ability to basically try to look outside the country, obviously, for different countries that have exceptional growth and value propositions.
In Brazil, since 2002, it's up 12,000%, the stock market, and we talked about how it's becoming, on other shows, energy, self-sufficient. What's your pop pick in Brazil?
Petrobras has done exceptionally well for us. We've had it in the portfolio for about the last year and a half. It continually comes up on our screens as being a stock that we should stay in, and we've been rewarded. They've had multiple new finds off their coast, and I think the demand for them getting more export-driven is going to increase. Historically, they've really used a lot of their oil internally, but now export, since they've got a lot more fuel coming online, they've been able to do a lot more exports with their products.
Clearly, one of the reasons stocks in S&P 500 have done well is because of a weak dollar. It looks like potentially the dollar is bottoming here. Maybe it's going to start to reverse course, and it's traded down straight from 2000 into 2008. How are you looking at that for your investors, and any thoughts?
Sure. I think as the U.S. economy starts to recover, we are going to see a little bit higher of a value in the dollar. I think that's a very crowded trade. There's a lot of people that have bet heavily on the dollar going down. I think there's going to be some short-term reversals, but until our economic picture gets a little bit better here and we get a little bit more economic growth, maybe get a little bit more control over our debt, well, I think we're going to see a short-term reversal probably maybe in the next year or so. I think in general the dollar is going to stay fairly weak.
Arno, I want to thank you very much for appearing with us today and answering our questions and giving us some stock picks. I want to also thank the viewers for joining us tonight, and next week we'll be discussing South American foods being brought into our market. For more information about this show and other shows, please go to WXEL.org with your questions and comments. I'm James DeGiorgia.
And I'm Jeff Garbaz for the Market Guys. Good night.
To receive a copy of your favorite Wealth and Wisdom episode, or if you have a question or comment about our program, please feel free to write us at Wealth and Wisdom, care of WXEL, P.O. Box 6607, West Palm Beach, Florida 33405. Or call us at 1-800-915-9935, extension 4477. We look forward to hearing from you soon.